There are proven research methods available to circumnavigate jury bias and motivate behaviors. For our discussion today, this method is known as learn, retain, and transfer. This process was thoroughly evaluated in a series of research studies published in 2005 by Mayer et al. And other researchers to validate the most effective techniques for combining electronic media and the spoken word to increase information processing. Learning and retaining is pretty straightforward in their definitions. We want the jury to learn our information and retain that information throughout the trial. The most important aspect of this method is the term transferring. In Gestalt psychology, this process is known as isomorphic connections. It is derived from the Gestalt theoretical work of Wolfgang Kohler and is the process of transferring a learned generalization or principle to other life experiences, which leads to behavioral change. Behavioral change occurs because we front-load and process our client's life experience with the jury. Front-loading is the opening statement, and processing the experience is our closing. This sets the structure for the jury to live our client's experience. It becomes apparent quite quickly why litigare interweaves psychological techniques for the psychological trial. As psychologists, we understand the importance of interweaving our techniques because that is how we navigate and reduce bias while triggering acceptance of new feeling systems that result in behavioral change. The human psyche is a complicated system with many filters and triggers for bias and resistance. We are much more than a set of instinctual responses motivated by the limbic system. We are complex thinkers, and we must include the prefrontal cortex, or the thinking brain, in our strategies. It may just be a quarter of a second of processing, but the thinking brain makes the final decision that solidifies or squashes an emotional reaction and subsequent behaviors. So why is learn, retain, and transfer so germane for the trial? As mentioned before, transferring is what makes behavioral change, and that is our target to motivate the jury to behave in a manner beneficial to our client. This is highly dependent upon how we guide the jury through our client's experience. In other words, how we open and close our case. The learn, retain, transfer process works best when the information is presented simply, clearly, and honestly. This idea is supported by current research on how to utilize resistance to persuasion as a persuasive tool. Using the learn, retain, and transfer process helps our persuasive argument because it creates the structure where we present our narratives in a clear, simple, honest, and logical manner, all of which are research proven to increase the persuasive arguments. Learn, retain, and transfer helps the juror understand how to accept information as reasonable, logical, and valid. In essence, we are presenting the information in a way for the jury to see what we are saying is reasonable and highly probable. This provides the jury the initial mental models they will use for making decisions about the case. One of the evidence-based theories behind learn, retain, transfer is the knowledge construction view, which states that learners naturally seek to build mental models for cause and effect. The mind is always looking to create balance out of chaos, so we link new information to what we know. It gives us a sense of security and control, and that is at the core of psychological balance. The mind, like the human body, is always seeking homeostasis. Mental models help to control the trial, and learn, retain, and transfer builds mental models. There are other essential components to this effective and proven process to be covered in future journal entries. As we conclude, we will leave you with this short story. In the team section of our website, there is the get-to-know video of Peter Weinberg, Litigare's founder. Litigare was invited by a national group of trial lawyers to talk about the psychological trial. We spoke at length about applying learn, retain, and transfer. and played the Get to Know You video, which was built in part with LRT and lasts 1.32 minutes. We ended our presentation at 3 p.m., and the attendees graciously invited us to dinner that night. Dinner started at 8. A few hours into the evening, we took a serious ribbing by the attendees on our video. Now this was 6 hours later, and folks had been drinking. After about an hour of teasing, we reminded the group they had recalled over 90% of the content of that 1.32-minute PowerPoint. When developed and delivered correctly, the Learn, Retain, and Transfer system can empower your jury to become the protector of your client by living your client's story.